I feel like Maverick.
I know. Oh my God. Johnny, how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
Likewise, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be, I feel like the last time that we got together and we were talking about everything, and we had a great podcast, no doubt, but I think we left a lot of stuff undone. I think that there were things that I think we could have gone a little bit deeper in, things we could talk about. Definitely want to talk about, I don't know if we want to start out there, or if you want to, but I definitely want to hit over 60. And that's a thing with me right now, that I'm trying to reach a lot of people, either through Instagram, talking to them, or on some of these podcasts, reaching out to the guys and the women that are 50, going into 60, being 60, being 70. Just because we age doesn't mean we have to get old.
It's Father Time, man.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you got a right to all of a sudden just give up on life, give up on going and doing things, getting outside, getting some of that vitamin D, eating properly. So I want to kind of hit on that at some point, because I think there's a big misconception of what happens as we start to get a little bit older. And I think that rather than looking at it as getting older and needing to slow down, I want everybody to change their mindset, and I want to see them age, but look at it as a challenge to break down the kind of preconceived ideas of what we can do and what we couldn't do.
Sure. So let's start with that. So I'm not 50 or 60, but I'm turning 40 in March. So I'll start with that. So obviously, as you age, you don't run as efficiently as you were, as opposed to when you're in your 20s and 30s. So I'm saying that because as we age, we still have the same processes happening. So you still have your hormones firing, you can still walk, etc. It's just a matter of you just not being as efficient. And that has a lot to do with what you're doing or what you're not doing. So for example, if I'm 50 years old and I don't exercise and my nutrition is just whatever, then you're going to feel life really hard. You're going to feel very slow, like a snail. You're not going to have any pop out the chair, out the vehicle. That's where you start to feel and blame age as a number. As you might say, hey, I'm old, I'm useless, I'm just going to disappear. Not that anyone would say that, but that's kind of what typically happens. However, when you start implementing, it's never too late to start with a, life and fitness regimen at 30, 40, 50, 60. But when you start to do that, you start to pump the brakes on the Father Time clock. So let me give you another example. So there's a few clients that I work with. Actually, most of my clients are over 45, but there's a few clients specifically that are in their 60s, and most of them are starting from a beginner level. So they didn't play sports, they didn't really exercise with weights per se. But one thing I noticed is once they started exercising in a structured format, they instantly felt better, right? So they just felt, they couldn't explain it in words. And I heard it many, many times where they'll say, John, can't explain it. I just feel so much more energetic. And they haven't really done too much, maybe within working with me for a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks max. They'll just instantaneously feel a lot better and a lot stronger. And that's important too, because as you age, your bones start to become a little fragile, assuming, again, that you're not active. And when you start exercising, you start to harden those bones, your hormones start to become more efficient, as I mentioned, and you just start to feel more alive. If you're a dude, you start exercising, particularly lifting weights, your testosterone levels start to increase, which is kind of what we want as men. Testosterone brings a lot of vitality, burns body fat, increases muscle tissue, etc. And for the ladies, same thing. Women still have testosterone levels, and obviously just a fraction. But when you're late age in your 50s and 60s, women with menopause and with no exercise, they're going to feel even more run down than the fellas. Unfortunately, that's just kind of what it is. But more of a reason for the ladies to exercise with weights to kind of increase that testosterone, increase the bone density, just to kind of get them going as well. So anyhow, to kind of wrap it up and kind of summarize it, so it's very important when you're 50s and 60s to exercise, but more specifically lifting objects, lifting heavier weights, or lifting weights, I should say. I wouldn't say heavier weights, to kind of rejuvenate the body, rejuvenate those muscles, because the bones are there, the tissues are there. They just need to be reignited, I guess you can say.
I'm glad that you're bringing that up as far as weight resistance, because I have done a little bit of reading on, past 60, what type of exercising is being recommended. And most everything that I was reading was a little bit disappointing.
Sure.
Because they were talking about chair yoga, water aerobics, body weight movements, which I believe in the body weight movements, but they were really pretty much the few articles that I was reading on it was pushing away from doing weight resistance.
Sure.
And what's your take on that?
So a lot of that too is you got to remember. So whether it's a doctor telling a patient or someone just reading an article, they're going to give you general advice, and they're assuming that the advice they're going to give to Mike or the advice that Mike is getting from an article is going to be safe. So that's what they're going to recommend, these water aerobics, these senior classes at big commercial gyms. Like, it's only exclusive for 6-year-olds, and you walk by and like, what are they doing? It's a combination of like getting in and out of a chair, doing some Tai Chi. But the reality is it really boils down to like an individualized program, right? So obviously they're just playing it safe, but the reality is you can at 60, 50, even 70, have a 7-year-old you can test them. Now, granted, you have to work with their boundaries and their capabilities, but if they can move, well, if they can squat and lunge, then there's no reason why they can't push themselves a little bit. And that's very important too, because I'm working with a client who's 73, just turned 73 last week, and he just said, "Man, I feel stronger than 70. I feel stronger than I was in 69." Just because we've been working together for quite some time, so I'm just kind of building and progressing his workout regimen. And we are using weights, we're using calisthenics as well, but just the combination of things. And it really boils down to the exercise age, we call it, of the individual. Like, in other words, like, have they ever exercised, or is this the very, very beginning? Because if it's the very beginning and you're 65, then maybe we should just start with body weights or getting up in and out of a chair or a box, but just temporarily, just to kind of hone in on that specific squatting pattern. And then from there you progress. So the problem with these general recommendations is just there's no progression. It's more like, just don't do anything else. You're old, you're fragile. But it's like, bullshit, right, man. You can do more than that. Kind of relevant, but when my wife was pregnant with John Michael, we saw the OBGYN, and long story short, she goes, the woman, she was super sweet, super nice, but she goes, I understand you, because my biggest concern was like, okay, exercise, I don't want her to stop. And she goes, yeah, she can continue exercising. However, I really recommend that she just walks, 30 minutes a day. I'm like, that's it? Yeah. Dude, my wife is pretty fit. Like, she has a strong foundation. Like, you're just telling me, like, all of a sudden we're going to hit the brakes and just start walking.
Well, doesn't that also come from a preconceived idea of what exercise is?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to this particular doctor, exercise is 30 minutes.
Sure.
So maybe they don't really have a comparison of what a person should be able to do. It seemed to me if you're accustomed to it, you should be able to continue doing what you're accustomed to doing.
Sure.
Now, it wouldn't take somebody that's been sedentary, that's 6 months pregnant, and then say, no, you're going to go start lifting weight. But
so that's kind of where I was heading to. So I gave her my background. I say, hey, my wife has been working out for years. She can do this, she can do that. Like, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this. And she's like, well, I'm just giving you my recommendations. And then I kind of challenged her, like, so what's your recommendations based off of? And she couldn't, like, just give me a comprehensive explanation. It was just like, well, what we learned is like, yeah, but that's just, it's so general and vague. There's no, specific detail. Well, if the person's coming in shape and they're pregnant, yeah, you have to alter a few things, but not hit the brakes and all of a sudden just start walking. That's all you can do. So anyhow, I started researching, and lo and behold, the mighty Google, you can find all types of information, valid information, not just a blogger, right? And it was just really good information to kind of support what I was, my gut was telling me. And my wife was working out till the day she had her first contraction. Like literally nothing changed. And, John Michael came out, etc. I say that going back and tying it into the geriatric population too is, again, just because you're 60 doesn't mean you're super frail, or if you are frail doesn't mean you can't be unfrail. I know that's not probably a word, but you can make a difference. You can make a change. It's just a matter of how you're going to put it together, maybe having some help with that.
Well, and one of the reasons why this has become important to me, being 68 now, that I went into my 60s, and I don't want to say I was in the best shape of my life, but I mean, I was really fit. Not just fit for being 60, but I was really fit for someone in their 30s in comparison to guys that I would see or work out with at the gym. And so in looking at it at 60 years old, at that point in time, how far can I go? How far can I take it? Well, what can I do? And all the way up to COVID, I was really doing well, really in good shape. And then I think, COVID maybe as an excuse, possibly.
Sure.
But, I slowed down on my work. I couldn't go to the gym, didn't have anything really at home. I tried working with bands and different things, body weight. But, and after a while, you just lose interest in it because I just got bored doing it.
Sure.
So then I found myself with the restrictions on COVID going back into the gym, and the disappointment that I felt because I was no longer at the level that I remembered being. I couldn't do the things that I was accustomed to doing, and I had to start. And I don't want to say I didn't start at ground level, but for me, it seemed like ground level. So then it started making me think about people like what you were saying that don't really have any athletic background, that really hadn't worked out prior to. And then now all of a sudden, they're 60 years old and they want to do something physical. They want to do something a little bit different. And, so I started thinking a lot about that. And how do we get people? How do we get them up out of their chair? You got a lot of people in that age group that all of a sudden 40 years of getting up and going to work, now they're retired and they don't have to get up anymore. So now they're not doing anything. And I have a friend of mine that's just going through that at 70 now, that was surfer, was active in his job. Then he retires and he's not doing anything, had difficulty getting up in the water because his mobility wasn't there and he had a hard time popping up. So then he lost interest in the surfing. Now he just had a minor little stroke where it didn't do anything physical damaging, but it's
nonetheless damaging.
And so I'm thinking, okay, how many people are like that work their whole life, get to a certain point, they're going to retire, and it's almost like it's giving them a free ride to, I'm just going to die. I mean, so anyways, that's...
Yeah, so a few things. So number one is, I understand my mom just told me today she's going to retire on the 29th of this month. And I'm like, great, now you can exercise. And she kind of looked at me like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then, all the time in the world now.
Yeah, okay, then you can just watch my kids more often. That's your exercise. No, but you make a good point too. Is you work your whole life and you're in your later years, and you need something. Unfortunately, you need something to motivate you, right? So, having said that, like the individual, what you do, for example, so something is going to have to inspire you to say, okay, now I have all this free time. I'm either going to I'm being sarcastic, either waste away or I want to continue to thrive. And the individual's going to have to make the connection. You're going to have to make the connection like, well, I don't want to waste away. I have all this time on my hand. What could I make best use of this? And so you're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to do things to kind of keep the engine going, get your hormones up, making your energies feel high. Otherwise, you are going to feel like you're disappearing. Now in 2022, you're starting to see more individuals your age who are very, very active. Back in the day with my parents and so in their generation, it was unheard of. It was just like work, retire, and then you just veg out because you earned that time of just. But nowadays, people are like, nah, I don't want to do that. I actually want to start exercising. I want to preserve my body. I want to still feel and look young. And
well, it's that time. If you're retiring, it's not like it was 30 years ago. Now you retire with a purpose. You should have a purpose. You want to travel. You want to take the RV out. You want to, you want to fly to different places. You want to experience things. So, and you can't do that if you're not in shape, if you're not mobile.
Capable, yeah, not mobile. I wanted to give you some specific examples because I feel like I was pretty vague with, the older population and exercising. So obviously there's a difference between someone in their 20s and their 60s. So the way you would want to do it in the best case scenario is, so now that we're 60s, you might have a bum shoulder, a bum knee. So more attention is spent on like a warm up. Right, so a lot more attention than before. When you're young, you wake up, the shoulder hurts, you can get away with like, oh, well, I'm just going to start bench pressing. But when you're older, it's not the case. Like you have to spend more time, pay more attention to the warm-up, like a full body warm-up. Nowadays, formal is very popular, a repercussion gun is very popular. Using a crossbar is very popular. Using those tools to kind of loosen up the tissue and then moving around, stretching out, like that's considered like a dynamic warm up per se. So that would be the best thing for anyone in their late 50s, 60s to kind of utilize to get going. And then from there, based on the goals, because obviously it's goal specific, kind of venture off and start exercising. But to get the most bang for your buck in your later years is you want to do more compound movements. So just like squatting, push-ups, like multi-joint, those are also known as compound movements. Those are going to give you the most bang for your buck as opposed to like just working on a bicep curl. We consider those single joint exercises. Those movements are just like, you can save that to the end or you even have to do it because compound movements incorporate like multiple muscles. Exactly. And in all reality, a total workout shouldn't last longer than about 40 minutes because in an hour time span, you have about 10 and 15 minute warm up, then the workout, then the cool down, and then you're out. And that's more than enough, to get a solid workout.
Now, what do you think as far as how many times a week? Is that going to depend again on the person's fitness level and not an age? So what I'm hearing from you is that it's more geared around the person's fitness level than it is around the age.
Sure. So there's no science reporting this, but in general, we know the average individual, young or old, is 3 days a week. But what I'm coming at it from a different angle. I think 4 days a week is more ideal. 4 days a week of strength training based or predominantly strength training based exercises. And then the remaining three days is just more stay on your feet, go ride a bike. Today my client rode his bike and took a picture of himself and sent it to me. He's like, that counts. You need to do that. And he's 69.
Right.
So it's just, actually I want to touch on him for a second. So I'm working with a gentleman and he's, banged up, a rotator cuff that's not playing well. He had a bad back. So he comes to me, he goes, I really want to work with you, but I want to fix all this stuff. So as a fitness coach, I can only inspect and kind of work with what I'm comfortable with because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist. So I was able to say, hey, listen, I can work with you here. I can help you with these areas and still build a good base for you. Obviously, I can't fix that. I can't fix this, but we can still get somewhere. So we started working together. So this is our 4th week together, lost about 1 or 2 pounds. But besides that, it's his energy levels, like his confidence, right? Because his main concern was like, man, like I can just see it in him. Like he feels like useless, right? Like he feels like, I could do more. I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. So I program everything based on his weaknesses. And this guy's sweating. And he always makes fun of me. He's like, what the fuck? Like, I should be able to do this, but it's so hard. I'm like, yeah, but this is where you're at currently. So this is what you need currently. You don't have to back squat because you can't do that. So why are we going to try to force that with you, right? So we're working on mobility, holding positions, just body weight. I'll give him a kettlebell, but it's like 8 kilograms, so it's not much. And we're just holding it. We're not pressing it. We're not. And he's like dripping sweat. And he'll see. We see each other twice a week, and he'll say, "Hey, man, I'm still sore from last week." So, but in a good way, right? I'm not trying to crush him, but you can tell like he's starting to have life again. And so it excites me because
there's something to be said too, and everybody that is in and out of a gym knows the feeling of muscle soreness, and there's a good muscle soreness. I mean, there's a feeling that I fucking did something today,
absolutely,
or I did something yesterday. It's almost kind of like a goal to get to that point. I mean, if you don't walk away feeling something,
sure.
And it's probably not true in the very beginning when you're just trying to get the mobility. And you're trying, I mean, you don't want to, hurt too much. And a lot of times with people, at least my experience has been that people that aren't accustomed to working out, if they start to have pain, if they start to feel it, it's automatic turnoff.
Sure.
You know, they don't.
Very few, but I've experienced, not personally, but I'll have fellow coaches who would say, "Oh, you know, Mike quit on me." Why?
Yeah.
He said he was so sore that he thought he like tore something. Like
he didn't tear it.
He just never felt that before.
Yeah, it's all a new feeling. You know, so it's to work out. And I guess this is one of those areas, and I'm glad you're hitting on it, because it's one of the areas that I find the most distressing is guys and women that never did anything physical.
Sure. They do exist.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden at 60, they want to. How much can someone that has not really worked out or been athletic in their life, how much can they expect to gain in their 50s or 60s starting at that point?
So, of course, the safe answer is it's all relative, right? So it begins in the beginning. So if I'm interviewing you for a first meet and greet, like, what are your expectations? Like, it starts there, right? So if you say, I want to do something that I know it's not possible, I just let you, I hear you out. I'll let you explain yourself why you want to get to this level. You could be like, I want to, put on some muscle, which are all valid personal goals. I'm not here to shoot it down, but I am just curious, like the potential client's thought process. Like, what's your timeline and why now? So from there, we kind of build a structured program. Sometimes, I would say, like, it's what you're asking is going to take a couple years. Very seldom, because I don't hear that too often. But, there has been less than a handful of occasions where I'm just like, it's going to take a couple years, and their eyeballs like pop out.
Right.
Because what most people, young or old, they just think, well, if I start exercising 3 days a week and in 3 months, I'm like, nah, bro, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You've done years of nothing. Like absolute nothing.
Right.
So you're thinking by working out for 6 weeks, you're going to start having biceps, and like, you're not. It's not going to happen. So that's kind of where we start. But to further answer your question is, you can accomplish a lot in your 50s and 60s. Actually, so I always say this, whenever you start a legitimate exercise program, you're going to feel first, you're going to feel the change, then you're going to see the change. So you're going to feel it, see it, and then have the inevitable plateau, which isn't a bad plateau. It's just more like your body's now just trying to readjust. It's toying with you. It's saying, all right, he's not going to keep it up, so I'm not going to further progress. But you keep at it, then you're going to do it again. You're going to feel it, see it, plateau. And it keeps going. Feel it, see it, plateau. So you can see gains. As I mentioned, my client 73, he's still putting on muscle. I wish I could show you a photo of him, but you would literally be like, holy fuck. Like, he looks great.
The differences in the...
Yeah, and he's not even doing what you would think he's doing. Like, we're just working on certain positions, mobility. Yeah, we're lifting weights, but like, it's not what people think. We're not doing any bicep curls, and this guy has a solid arm bicep. It's just amazing. But you can make gains. Of course, it's not going to be what you're in your heart is hoping for, but you can put on muscle, male or female, and you can see progress. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you say to somebody when they reach that first plateau and they think that they've been working out really regularly, strenuously, doing everything that's being asked of them, and then they hit this plateau? Because that's where you lose a lot of people, right there at that plateau, because they don't understand it.
Yeah, so that's actually easy, Mike. So that boils down to the coach themselves. So I have my clients, every single client has a program, and I show them where they're at. And prior to starting on session number 1, we explain everything. Here's what's going to happen. And then when we hit this, we'll be able to identify. So they're educated so that when they experience that, they already know about it. The thing is, we're constantly reviewing the program so they can see where we're at. The goal isn't to show them like how I put things together, but the goal is to show them we started here, we're progressing, boom, 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 so that when they do hit the plateau, it's okay. They're not as bummed out about it. And honestly, that's more important because you're staying professional, you're staying true. It's more like I told you so, right? You felt it first, right? And then we started seeing inches come, right? Okay, and then you hit that plateau. I already told you, we did the first 2, this is the third one, but it's only temporary.
When you hit that plateau, do you change things up a little bit?
No,
you just
you gotta
stay
trust
solid.
Yeah, you got to trust the process. Again, your body's just playing with you. It's just, again, it's literally telling you like, I don't think he's going to hang around. So why am I going to work harder to burn more calories? You know, so your body's very clever, man. It's more complex than the iPhone.
Yeah.
So it's shooting hormones. There's enzymes. It's fucking with you. It's helping you. It's regressing. It's pissed at you. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts. So when you hit that plateau, it's just really kind of like frazzled.
Right.
And you just stay the course, and then boom. You'll see some more gains, you know, whether it's weight loss or, you know, energy or muscle tone, whatever the case is.
So how do you reach this age group? You know, I mean, that's in your experience, you know, how do you, when you are talking to somebody,
sure.
There's always going to be a lot of reluctance on their part.
Sure.
Just because it's all brand new to them.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know what's worse, the person that's never worked out or the guy that was the high school jock and his brain is still telling him, you know.
It's the person that doesn't want to listen. That's the worst.
Yeah.
Right. Because if they come in with I played high school football, like back in the Al Bundy days, like, you're not going to, the chances are slim of succeeding.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a matter of being open-minded. You know, you just got to absorb. To answer your question, as you know, I work at a gym, so I just walk up to people, and they know my story. I happen to be the oldest coach. Hopefully, I don't look it, you know. But they resonate with that. You know,
wait, I'm still absorbing. You're the oldest coach, and I'm thinking, you're a kid.
Yeah, thanks, man. But that throws them off guard.
Right.
And then I tell them I have kids, and then that throws them off guard. And then they kind of just like listen. You know, like they're probably just listening, and it's like, what's this kid's angle, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just hit the right buttons because, you know, I'm a parent. I know what it feels like to have like aches and pains. I kind of speak the language,
right.
And it's just easier for them to understand because you know, as I mentioned, most of my clients are in their later 40s, and actually all of them are. No, not all of them. But it's just interesting because they just gravitate to what I'm trying to say, and we just connect very, very well. I'm working with a guy. He's going to kill me because I'm going to send him this link of this podcast. But his birthday is coming anyhow. He lost 53 pounds with me so far. And prior to starting, he lost 100 pounds. So in total, lost 153 pounds. And he was in his 60s. Yeah. And
wow,
this guy is awesome. Great soul, great personality, great work ethic. And, you know, he had a personal trainer pre-COVID. And long story short, came to the gym just because it was closer. Our gym, it was closer. And we just connected. And from there, you know, he works really hard. And the interesting thing is people think hard work has to be like unreachable work. It's not that. He just works hard. Like he does what he needs to do. You know, there's flexibility in what we do. He enjoys it. He would send me messages saying like, hey, I feel great today. You know, I haven't felt like this in a while. Like that's when you know like the client's excited and wanting to change, right? As opposed to
also too, it's that consistency.
Yep.
You know, that's the biggest key. That you know, people you can't work out today and then make excuses and then it's a week later and you work out again. You know, it's not going to work. You've got to be consistent. And you got to stay on a time schedule, program.
Yeah.
You know, and before, you know, pause here for 1 second. So, Brian, this part of the podcast, we're going to cut that out so he can send it to him. Okay. Yeah.
sounds good.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we have Brian here.
There we go.
And otherwise, I'd been screwed. I'd have been, good luck. We have to go through the whole thing.
I know.
Yeah. But, it's, you know, this particular age group, and I want to say something else too while I'm thinking about it, and it's kind of off topic of what we're talking about, but this is a part that I'm going to throw out there at the younger people that have parents that are in their 50s, that are in their 60s, that are in their 70s, and stop telling your parents they're old.
Oh, exactly.
Stop telling your parents they can't do something. Stop being those kids that are holding them back. And as a matter of fact, you know, if you're young and you're listening to this podcast, teach your parents about podcasts.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing for me to talk to people about podcasts and they're in their 20s. Everybody in their 20s is listening to a podcast of some sort. You know, 30s, possibly 40s, you start getting in fit, be surprised how many people don't even recognize or know what a podcast is or how to get on Spotify, or how to do some, teach your parents how to do these things and bring them on board so that they can hear stuff like this. It may not be this particular podcast, but there's another fitness podcast out there someplace that they can listen to that's going to resonate with them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest problems I see, is that you have too many people as you're getting older reminding you that you're getting older. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll joke about my age with people, but 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at them saying, dude, you're 40 years old and I'm in better shape than you are. I don't say that out loud, but I'm looking at them, I'm going, I'm older, but I can.
To kind of add to that, I would even say for the younger people who are not in their 40s, it's okay to ask for help. And I say that because when I do these consultations and they're under 40, the response is, oh, I'll just do it on my own. I'll lose weight first before I go into a weight loss program.
Yeah.
You'll lose weight first. Yeah, you restrict. Fine. I'm here to shove anything down anyone's throat, but it's just like, are you listening to what you're saying?
Yeah.
So it's okay to ask for help because, as I mentioned with my clientele, it's always the same response. Our commentary is, I wish I would have done this sooner.
Right.
Okay, there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
Right? So which means that younger people, it's okay, man. It's actually best that you invest in a program. Doesn't have to be with me, of course. Just in a program, any program, get some help, man. Get the wheels moving. Get it going for yourself. Because later, it's not that it's harder, but you're less motivated. You're more tired. So you're just more doubtful.
It's and you can always tell. You see them coming into the gym, and they'd have no idea what they're going to do.
Sure.
How they're going to do it. They don't know what the machine is good for. They don't know the purpose of it. They don't know. Even if you're sitting in a machine that's designed to do a bench press.
Sure.
You still have to adjust the bars, for the right flex. You still have to adjust the seat to have it in the right position. And you see so many of them. And it's really to a point. I don't say anything anymore. I used to. I'd go, let me help you out.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming now because I would say the majority of people going to the gym not knowing what to do, and they spend a lot of time walking around.
I think in their defense too, because we have YouTube and stuff. I know they're probably looking at something, but it's not specific to them, right? Just because you see it on a video, I can make a video.
Sure,
but I'm reaching a specific
like
population.
Maybe doing double unders or
yeah, exactly. Saw that. Yeah. But so there was a guy that I met a couple months ago, younger. I think he was like 24, and his goal was to lose weight. He's like, I want to lose weight, and he didn't look bad. He needed to lose maybe 10 pounds. He said he wanted to lose 20. I'm like, no, man, like 10 would be perfect because you're a tall guy. You have a great frame. But anyhow. So I see him at the gym all the time. We talk, and like, oh, how's it going for you? He's like, oh, well, I didn't really lose any weight, so I decided to go into like a bulking phase. And in my head, I'm like, of course you did. Yeah. Like, of course. That's the natural, I can't lose body fat, so what are you going to do? Yeah. I'm going to start bulking up. Like, you're just...
Yeah. I'm going to be a power lifter now. Exactly. I gave up on bodybuilding. Exactly. Yeah.
But bless his heart, I still give him tips because my intention is to really help people. Whether you work with me or not, as long as you're like succeeding and I have a relationship from them, because I'm always learning from people. Right. Whether they believe it or not, I always say, look, I'm trying to learn, so I have all this information, but my goal when I write a program, it's not set in stone. If things might not work, and that's just throwing it out there. So we're going to have to pivot if that ever happens because I'm learning from you, learning from me, and vice versa. But anyhow, I just wanted to share that because I saw him the other day and I was tripping out. I was like, how's it going? Oh, just put on some size. I'm like, how's it look? All right. Yeah, teach their own.
Yeah, just don't take your shirt off. Well, and I guess that's the one thing about working out is that I think we, along the way, have kind of confused working out with just looking good. Mm-hmm. And it's so much more. It's like you gave a couple examples about some of your clients that are just the best they've ever felt. They got a little bit more energy. They're getting a little bit stronger. They're getting up in and out of the car easier. I mean, there's the main reason for getting fit, for going to the gym, for doing any of those things is for your health. And I think somewhere along the line, we kind of forgot about that part of it. And it becomes more about losing weight. What do I look like? Different size clothing, whatever it is.
I think that's why I resonate a lot stronger with people who have who are parents or older, just because that's exactly what I talk about. And I just speak the language too. And, I always say this on social media. And I train hard, but it's not what people think. Like, I don't go past a certain limit. I'm doing a lot less than before, like volume-wise, just because I'm just in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I'm not trying to break any records. I'm challenging myself, but it's not what people think. My nephew will send me messages, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's not in the cards for me.
Yeah.
So for a parent, too, is, you can still feel great. You can still feel important. My kids will always joke and say, like, let me give you an example. Like, if we're moving something that's really heavy, my little one will say, well, Daddy can do it. So that's my goal. Like, I want them to be, like, dependent or have faith in me. Like, I don't want to be like, I'm just in the couch, like, my back hurts, I can't, someone help us, So that really inspires me to continue to do what I do. And I always share these stories all the time with my clients, and they trip out because, like, I want that too. Like, I want to present myself that way too.
Yeah. I think it's just, there's something about mentally knowing that you're capable of doing something outside the ordinary. A simple little thing for me, 65, 66, 67 years old. So I'm putting Christmas lights up on the house. Well, it's easier for me because I'm somewhat lazy. I'm not going to go get the ladder and put the ladder up. So I go over to the patio. I jump up on top of the 5-foot wall, hoist myself up onto the patio cover, and I'm up on the roof. That's what I do at 65, 66, 67 years old. And there's a part of me that just keeps doing that because I can, number one, but number two, because it kind of feeds me that I'm doing something that I know most 65-year-old men can't do.
Or won't do.
Or
they
won't
won't
do.
have the confidence, like, I can't do that.
Yeah. And I don't want to be that way. I mean, I've been working out since, I'm going to say 20 years old. It was probably a year or two before that, but say 20 years old. So that's, that's 48 years I've been working out. Now, if I've been really consistent during that 48 years, no, there's been times when work has gotten in the way, kids, coaching, baseball, softball, whatever, there were things that got in the way, and I would miss a big 6-month period of time, but I always found my way back. So over 48 years in and out of gym, when gyms, there wasn't anything chrome in a gym, and the lighting came from light bulbs, not fluorescence. And it was, and it wasn't crowded, and it was a mom and pop gym stuck in the corner of some little strip mall. Yeah. And things have changed so much. So we're seeing a lot more people go to the gym. Yeah. But are the numbers representing healthier people?
No, unfortunately not. This is obviously the month of January, so every gym across the board is going to have a massive increase in memberships and new memberships. And unfortunately, it's just inevitable that people are going to give up. I have my suspicions. I mean, I think just they're going in with no plan, the wrong intentions, no help. So, like, beginner, and they think that just swinging for the fences is going to get them results. So there's a lot of reasons. But I think the best thing someone can do if they're going to start is get some help. Like, why wouldn't you get help? Like, we go to school, right, to learn. Right. Like, yes, you can learn on your own. Like, I read a lot of books, but it does help when you go to school and you learn from a professor and you got to ask questions, and it's very specific questions, and the responses are very specific to your questions. So, you got to get help, man. Like, that's one thing I always tell people. But at the same time is, they have to be ready for it. Like, they have to want it, right? So I can explain it and show them facts and keep talking to them blue in the face. But if they're not convinced, or I don't want to convince them, but if they don't really believe in the message, then it's
yeah. Well, also too, I think for me, I watched over the years in the attrition, and I not just so much people coming in and out of the gym, because I really don't pay that much attention to who's in the gym, if they're how much time they spend, but through friendships with people that, especially when you're an athlete yourself, people will come and tell you, oh yeah, I joined the gym. I'm going to do this. And, oh, that's great. Really good. And then within a couple months, they're not talking about the gym anymore. The attrition is so high. But I think a lot of that has to do too with high expectations.
Exactly.
And low performance.
Yeah. But it's interesting because people should have higher expectations, but it's relative, right? They should have higher expectations, but it's just, it can't be like unrealistic. It's like you want to challenge your norm, right? So if you're on the couch, challenge yourself to exercise. That's right. Challenging or increasing your expectations. It's not, you're on the couch, that's all you do, and then you're going to do like a Spartan race, in a month, which can be done, but that's unrealistic. Right. But people should challenge the norm. They have to. It's the only way to get better. My clients, they have different businesses, they're doctors, and I'm always encouraging them to challenge themselves, not necessarily in the gym or working with me, but pick something else up that's probably not health or fitness related, like learn a new language, play an instrument. But the point is, you have to always challenge yourself. It keeps you snappy. It just keeps everything interesting. I think that's very important as well. We can't stay stagnant, whether it's fitness or anything. Like you challenge yourself. Again, learn a new language, play a new game, something. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah. Do a podcast.
Yeah. I just feel like
I think that's an important part of life. That's a truism in life, is that if you want to have a fulfilling life, you have to do things out of the ordinary.
Sure.
You have to do things that are outside your comfort zone. And it comes not, I really and truly don't believe that it is the accomplishment of the task that is rewarding as much as it's the accomplishment of changing your mindset and being strong enough to see something all the way through.
Sure.
I think that is where challenging yourself comes the key.
Did I tell you the story about the acoustic guitar on the last podcast?
No.
So real quick, my wife, Karina, bought me a guitar years ago. It was over 10 years ago. And it was sitting when we used to live in the condo downtown. It was sitting there for years. And then we bought this new place. It's been sitting there for 6 years. And then prior to the pandemic, in February, I just picked it up. I'm like, all right, today is going to be the day. And prior to that, she would always say, dude, let me just sell it. You're never going to play. I got it for nothing. I'm like, I'm going to play. I'm just waiting. She's like, waiting for what? And I would say, I don't know. But I will play it. Anyhow, haven't stopped playing it, dude. And I didn't play sooner because I was intimidated, because I did make some certain attempts. But when I looked up online in these videos, I'm like, man, this is too complicated. So I'm tying this into like a beginner doing fitness. Oh, this looks too complicated. However, rewind back to February, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it no matter what. It can't be that hard, right? And so now I'm learning songs, playing songs. I'm not great, but I can decipher what the instructor is trying to convey. And I'm like, I understand it. Same thing with the beginner starting up an exercise regimen. Like, dude, it's going to be rough around the edges in the beginning, only because it's new for you. The volume's new, the movements are new, how to read exercises is new. But after a while, it's not hard at all. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So. I think that, I don't believe that I go through too many podcasts and talking to people that I don't bring this up. And that's, if you have, first of all, if you've never heard of David Goggins, Google and figure out who David Goggins is.
Exactly.
And then secondly, get his book, You Can't Hurt Me.
Sure, great book.
And if you want to be inspired by a person that has learned to train his mind, this is the book. Yeah. This is the book.
I agree.
Now, he's a crazy fucker. There ain't no doubt. I mean, this guy is off the charts. But what the cool part is that I love about him is he never says, be like me.
Exactly.
He says, don't try to be me. Don't try to do the stuff that I do. He's just
sharing the story.
He's just sharing the story. He's saying, change your mindset and be the best you can be. And how does that fit in to a personal trainer, to a fitness coach with a client? do you work on the mental side of it as much as you do?
So, I mean, the transition to this is perfect because there was a few clients that I worked with in somewhat past who I was just getting frustrated. Why aren't you listening to me? Like, you're doing it wrong. I would never say that, of course. But it was just very frustrating. I'll talk to my boys at the gym, like, man, I don't get it, man. I'm saying all the right things, like, and so, like, calm and, like, here's the plan. But then again, it's just changing my mentality. Like, okay, well, just because I feel I'm saying it correctly or just because I feel what I said should resonate, it doesn't mean that it's the only way. So I'm changing my perception, like, okay, well, that's not working. Don't be frustrated. Let's try another angle. Right, because the goal is to get the client to buy into change, and everyone has different, like, hot buttons.
Right.
So I thought I knew this client just because he did tell me what I thought I assumed was his hot buttons, but it turned out not to be the case. And nonetheless, it was a learning opportunity for me, and I haven't forgotten about that. It was about 2 months ago or so, and I'm just always on my toes now, just making sure, like, it's okay if someone doesn't change right away, or if you give someone a task and they don't accomplish it. It's just move on to a next way to outline the task or so.
Yeah. So when you get somebody new, what are some of the questions you ask them to find out what their trigger points are?
Oh man, there's a lot. So first, everyone's different, but first you get to know what a typical day for Mike is, right? Start there, as opposed to, nice to meet you, have a seat. What are your goals? Instead was, how you doing? Have a seat. Walk me through a typical day. From there, you just touch on, like, their personal life, what they do for work, what they eat, any injuries, of course, like medical, information, medication, just natural, casual conversation. And then during the conversation, because it's unscripted, like, he or she's going to give you some, like, oh, I want to lose weight, but you haven't really asked that yet. Mm-hmm. You're just asking for a normal, typical day. And then once you feel, as a coach, you have enough information about the person, then you can say, okay, so now let's kind of tie this in. I'll summarize what they kind of expressed, and then tie into, like, why they're here meeting with me, and why they got a gym membership, or why they were referred, whatever the case is. And that's where they start to spill the beans, and we just kind of go from there. So
when everybody's different,
mm-hmm.
everybody has different goals. Everybody has, their different fitness levels coming in. Everyone is going to have, different levels of fitness mm-hmm. at the end too, not just in the beginning, but, not everybody's going to be Kobe. So,
yeah.
How do you work with people when they come in and they may have this unrealistic vision mm-hmm. of where they want to be? Mm-hmm. How do you?
Again, it's just about being professional and truthful. There's a guy, a really good friend of mine, who I work with, or who I worked with. We just concluded our program, and he's younger, but he realistic. And he goes, okay, so we're going to work together. So this is kind of what I want. And it's a reasonable goal, but kind of like the work didn't match what his goal was. So, like, during the process of us working together, I say, hey, are you sure you want to do that? Like, you're capable, you're more than capable, but your actions aren't displaying that, right? And he has 2 coffee shops that he owns, so he's very busy. And so, like, I said, I think we should kind of scale it back a little bit. Maybe super flat, chiseled abdomens shouldn't be the best route with this. And so, luckily for him, because he's smart, very bright, very strong, very athletic, was able to pivot and just kind of bought into what I was trying to say from the very beginning, mm-hmm. is not to dissuade anyone from their goals, but to say, okay, cool, but if this is the goal, here's the work that is needed to accomplish this goal. And sometimes it looks overwhelming, but they need to see, or they need to know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts for most beginners to come into the fitness arena and understand that what they see in another person, how much work and effort it would take to get there.
Sure.
I mean, you look at, and I'm not even going to use like the professional bodybuilder example. I'm just, just the guy that you see at the gym, the local Joe that has a regular job, but he's got a six pack. He's got nice arms. He's got rounded out shoulders. He looks, looks really, really good. I want to look like that. Well, they don't realize the amount of effort, the training, the nutrition, everything that goes into getting to each level. Because if it was just a matter of going to the gym and getting a personal coach to help you through it, everybody'd be looking pretty badass.
Yeah, I think nowadays too, it's, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, but it really takes about 6 months. First I said 8 weeks, and then it was like, okay, 12 weeks. And then 12 weeks is the minimum, but it takes about 6 months to really see like some just really good change. And on top of that is, nutrition, obviously is massively important. However, like when you see like those quick transformations, it's usually from a contest or like unsustainable like way of eating, right? You see a lot of carb challenges, which can get you like these results that can be like mind-blowing. Like, man, look at this. This person looks great. But what they don't know is you can't maintain that.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's very unpractical to continue. So people just become discouraged, and it just takes time, to do it right. It takes time, and they have to know that the coach is going to have to outline exactly the expectations for both the coach and themselves and the client, and just kind of outline the program. And it's okay for both the coach or the client not to see eye to eye, and that's actually a good thing, because it shows it's going to save a lot of frustration, and from both the client and the coach. So. But you got to be upfront. You got to be truthful about it. Yeah.
Well, also too, when you're looking at a comparison, you look at the competitive bodybuilder or the competitive fitness athlete, and they're dieting, and you're right, that's not sustainable.
Yep.
Not at all.
Yep.
And it's probably not even healthy to try to make it sustainable.
Yep.
The limitations that they put on themselves, and the lack of calories, and so at the upper age group, I don't really think that that's really probably an issue, because wouldn't imagine there are too many 50, 60-year-olds thinking that they're going to be competitive at it, at it. Yeah. So, but when you're dealing with these people, do they have the opposite extreme in thinking about their fitness? Well, I'd be just happy when they're not pushing themselves far enough. Do they come in just, I just want to lose a couple pounds, or I just want to, and not raise the bar up?
Well, so if your goal is to lose weight, right, you've got to be specific. So sometimes either a client will overshoot, very seldomly will they undershoot. So overshoot meaning I want 15, but reality is, 10 is kind of in their ballpark based on their work ethic, et cetera. Very seldomly do they say, I want to lower the bar, I just want to lose 5 pounds. We'll start with the bottom half. So usually if the goal is very low, obviously there's a lack of confidence issue, mistrust from the past. They failed multiple times on their own, which is okay, because actually I think failing is a good thing for a client, because these days, most of the people I come in contact had a trainer or have adopted a program in the past and just weren't successful. And actually that's a good thing too, because that shows that they're looking for change, or they're looking for help. So that's a good thing. Now, going back to overshooting is, again, it's just, okay, that's great, Cowboy, but slow down. Let's really look at what that looks like. So it just depends. We have to kind of read the client and figure out, like, okay, is it too far to the right or is it too far to the left? And just getting them to kind of meet you in the middle and kind of just really just have a realistic goal.
Yeah. What is the typical length of time that you keep a client?
There's no typical. It's all different. I've been working with clients for a couple years, and I've been working with clients for 6 months. So it just depends on what they're looking for. And more often than not, when the goal is reached, the goal changes, right? Or it could be a performance-based goal, or it could be like, I just want to preserve my health and I enjoy working with you. That's okay too. So it's not so like clear cut where I just want to lose 10 pounds and that's it. Because the goal is always changing.
Correct.
And like nowadays too, is people just want to stay in the game. They like the variety. They like learning. And that's kind of what I've been experiencing lately. And that's pretty exciting too, because it just shows that what I'm doing is working.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also like they're just as excited to continue to work with me, because I'm always, whether they're with me for 3 months or more than that, I'm always looking to challenge them and give them my absolute best. You know, I'm never going to give anyone like my non 100%.
Right. So do you have clients that come in and they work with you a couple days a week, and then they take that and do things on their own during the remainder of the week? And then
So I have 2 clients who actually work out together when they're not with me. They'll just practice some of the movements that we've done together, and they motivate one another. I think it's the coolest thing when I see 2 of my clients working together, like they're friends or gym buddies.
Right.
And it's freaking dope. Like they're accountable. We're all like on a 3-way text. You know, if I'm trained one client and I don't see the other, I'll just text them and say, hey, where are you? You know, like for the moral support.
Yeah.
So it is fun. And that's what I'm trying to create is, you know, you can make it fun. You can make moving around and lifting weights fun. It doesn't have to be, you know, so mundane.
Yeah. Yeah. Because working out with weights, I mean, it's something that could seem mundane. It's something that you could feel as though the same old thing over and over. But when you really dive into it and you see results and you see changes, or you see, you know, there's nothing better. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, even after all these years, I still love going to the gym. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not going to the gym and I miss it after, you know, 3-4 days or a week, or I just got over COVID, you know, so it's been a couple of weeks, you know, looking forward to this coming week and getting back in there and doing it again, because it's just something enjoyable about it. Mm-hmm. You know, that's.
So I just thought of this while you were talking. So there's a client that I'm working with. He's 1 year younger than me, and really good friends, works really, really hard. And he was telling me just recently, he goes, my friends make fun of me that I'm working with a trainer. I'm like, why would they make fun of you? He's like, that's what I said. Like, why do you care? Like, I feel good. You know, I'm getting results. Yeah. And his friends couldn't give him like a legitimate answer. They were just possibly jealous. I don't know. But I'm like, are you okay? He's like, no, man, I feel great. He's like, honestly, and he's no pushover. He works very hard. And prior to us meeting, you know, he can hold his own, you know, but I just approached him one day, and honestly, for him, it was pretty unique. I was like, hey, man, I see what you're doing. I would love to help you. I feel like I can just give you like just a little bit more. And he's like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, man, like you have everything going, but I just feel like if you just let me, do you mind if I just show you some cool things I feel like you'll really love? And we've been working together for 4 months now. Really? And it's just cool because, once again, he was just like, I spoke that same language. He's like, right on, let's do it. Like, it wasn't that I had to convince him or anything. It was like, man, you're doing great. Yeah. You're killing it. You know, I would just love to show you a little bit extra that I feel you might find even more exciting for you. Yeah. And every time I see him, he's like, fuck, this sucks. But like in the manner of like he continues to come, he enjoys it, he leaves with a smile, he's always challenged. Yeah. And he's it was so funny because when we first, and I'll kind of end with this, when we first started working together, he's always on call. He walks into the gym with his earbuds, and sometimes in the middle of our workouts, he would like say, I gotta take this call. And he would usually walk in about 5 to 10 minutes late. Like now he's early. He still has his AirPods on, but like, you know, he's more like, I gotta go, and I'm in the middle of a session or whatever the case is. So now his priorities change now, right? Change it around. Everyone else just slow down. Like I need to take care of this 1 hour to myself. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, which is totally different than probably when he was by himself. Exactly. Because when he's by himself, there's nobody to hold him accountable for, hey, get off the phone. Yeah. Even though you're not saying it, right? He feels it. But when you're by yourself, you know, you're going to be 5 minutes longer going into your next set, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you keep being on the phone and each
it eats up time, man.
You know, it eats up a lot of time. Yeah. And then, you know, your time between sets is being stretched, which isn't good. You know, you want to keep that, you know, a little bit shorter time. Yeah. So, yeah,
it's cool to see, man. It just makes me like all bubbly and like, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how long you been coaching now? It's got to be 20 something years.
No. It's like, I always get the number. It's 15 or 16 years. Again, hopefully the face doesn't show it, but it's the only thing I've done.
Yeah.
And, every year I try to get better. I don't want to just say, I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to learn, get new certifications or work towards new certifications, read new books. As I mentioned, I'm always like literally learning from new clients in terms of like how to overcome certain obstacles, or I work with other coaches. I'm always learning from them,
right?
Whether they believe me or not, because they too will be listening to this. So I'm always just like taking notes, like in my head, like, oh, that's cool, like that's a good, good piece of advice. So I'm just always looking to evolve. Just because when I first started personal training, my mindset was the opposite. It was like, this way or none, no way. You got to do it like this. No, not like that, like this.
Yeah.
Oh, my girlfriend said, no, she's wrong. She's all wrong. Your boyfriend said that, he's wrong too. I would say that in the beginning, and now I reflect back. I'm like, damn, how the fuck did I get away with that? Seriously, it's like, why were they working with me? Like, I wasn't mean or anything, but I was just like, no, that's not going to work. I think this is better.
Well, there's a lot of things that we have done when we were young that we look back in hindsight and think, how the fuck can I take that back? I mean, it's like, that's just part of it. I mean, I think about me and my industry and so many things that I have done. And I look back now and go, what was I thinking?
I know.
I
know.
And then the problem is then you finally get to a point in life to where you pretty much got it all figured out. And now all you want to do is just get out of it.
Sure.
It's like,
sure.
You kind of, I don't know if that's just because of tenure in it, or is it's really and truly the challenge is gone. Then he's just ready for something different.
Well, I like the challenge personally. I like the challenge of personal growth and the challenge of improving my clients. Like I'm always, I don't settle. Going back to my client who lost 53 pounds, the goal now is shifting. It's no longer like you can't continue losing weight and disappear, right? So now the goal is now shifting to more strength oriented. And, so I'm always looking to make it entertaining for him and challenging him with his limitations. He has, tight hamstrings. He has an elbow issue, which both we are addressing. And just being creative, because I do put a lot of thought into everything we do to make it fun as well. It has to be fun.
Right.
Even for me, like if I look at something and I prescribe something for myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not going to have a good time doing this. I'm probably not going to do it. So same thing with my clients is I want to make sure, because I already know their capability. I know what they like for the most part, just from our experiences working together. I want to make it relatively fun for them. So that's key.
Yeah. I'd like to say that it's just a mindset, between is this fun, is this not fun? But no, there are times when it's just fucking hard and I just don't want to do it, It's like cardio.
Yeah.
My whole career, my whole athletic career has been based around weights and strength and resistance. Not too much around the cardio end of it. Every time I do cardio, which I do, I force myself to, and I try to find innovative ways to make it better, but there just isn't, in my book, a good way of just doing cardio. Double unders are not going to be in my book. Yeah. And, so then I play games where, I'm just going to get on the treadmill and I'm just going to walk. That way I'm getting it in. And I'm going to walk at a fast pace and I'll give it, 45 minutes or whatever that it is. And it'll be enjoyable. And I'll listen to a podcast. I'll do whatever, trying to make it. It just doesn't.
So one thing I was talking to a client, same thing, because with aerobic work, we usually think running, right? So let's just pretend that's the only tool you can use. There's no rower, there's no fan bike, you don't have any jump rope. How can you make running fun? So I had this conversation with a client about a week and a half ago. And so what I said was, okay, here's what we're going to do, because it's kind of what I did, because I'm in the same boat. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of just like lace up my shoes and here I go for 20 minutes. No way.
Oh no,
absolutely not.
It's like my wife, Jill, if she's not running more than 6 miles, it was a disappointing run for her. She's just an ex-marathoner, so long distance is her thing. And I'm thinking, put a bullet in my head.
Dude, before I got here, I went to the beach with Karina. She rode for 6 miles, came back, gave me the bike. We're at the beach downtown, and then she ran for 3 miles. And I'm like, And I was just there listening, reading a book, and then at the beach, and then just listening to some music. But I just wouldn't be able to do that.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
But anyhow, so what I told my client was, and your listeners can do the same thing. So all you can do is, all you have access to is a treadmill. So you would run 60 seconds. Why 60? I don't know. I just find 60 seconds to be the sweet spot. Doable. You run for 60 seconds at your pace. I'd encourage 60 to 70%. So 100% is like a max out sprint, which you shouldn't do. So keep it at conversational 60 to 70%. Jump off and then pick 1 or 2 body weight exercises. Let's just pretend you don't have access to anything. So you can do some squats, you can do some push-ups. During this time, you're gonna log the time. So you're gonna run 60 seconds. There's a running clock. Jump off, do some squats. 10, 15. Do a plank for 30 seconds. So that's already 90 seconds plus whatever it took you to complete the squats. Hit pause, and then rest the exact amount of time that it took you to complete that work, and then repeat that. So now you can make this cardio thing, this treadmill thing, this running thing a lot more entertaining, right, as opposed to running, okay?
Yep.
So that's something that I've been implementing with myself and with my client, and it's a lot more doable. So if you're doing 5 rounds, that's 5+ minutes on the treadmill running, but yet if I was to ask you just run for 5 minutes straight, even then, you can do it, but it's not very fun. It's just, that's just kind of how I would orchestrate some aerobic work and,
just to break it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then you're just getting a little bit more muscle group recruitment, and it just makes it more manageable more entertaining.
Yeah. But the most, because I used to race bicycles, so going out with the group and doing, a 50 or 60 mile ride or whatever, I could do it because you're wheel to wheel and you're with people and you're talking along the way, and then every once in a while you get challenged by an uphill climb or whatever. So I was able to do it, sustain it for a lot of years because it was entertaining and it was social, all in the same thing. Mm-hmm. I found that when I got on my bike and I went to train on my own, mm-hmm. It's freaking boring. I hated it.
Yeah. So I do want to add, so before I rolled that piece of advice out, and it's not like I made it up, so I have this Whoop that measures like your heart rate variability, your recovery, etc. So overall, it's measuring cardiovascular fitness, just summarizing here. Mm-hmm. And so prior to doing this type of aerobic work, my cardiovascular health was all right, because I was more like strength oriented, etc. Right. But I just felt like I was missing something. I already knew what it was. It was aerobic training. So I started literally implementing what I just told you, and my scores almost doubled. I have data to support it. I didn't come up with this because I was looking at forums as well and looking at other coaches who kind of display like, hey, here's how you can increase your heart health, etc. I really don't want to run though. Yeah. But I implement the same principles, and dude, my scores almost doubled. And I'm like, holy fuck. And I even felt the difference. Yeah. It took a couple weeks. About 3 weeks to be precise, they started to see an increase. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, damn. Yeah. Like I just feel more energetic, etc. But it's just, the proof is in the pudding. You can still get the same type of cardiovascular benefit. Even if you don't want to run straight through, you can break it up, such as I explained, with that type of interval. Like you run, you do 2 exercises, you rest, and then you repeat. Because that's sustainable work. Because when you're running, it's a sustainable pace. This we don't want to confuse people with like doing multiple exercises with no rest, because that's not aerobic work. Right. Aerobic work is sustainable work. So when you're jogging, it's at a sustainable pace, conversational pace. That's true aerobic work.
Right, and it is also to recovery. Yeah. Your heart rate going back.
Your resting heart rate will go down. It's basically like when your body's going to experience stress, and then the more aerobically fit you are, it's able to recalibrate a lot quicker. That's
right. So what's with the watch?
So it's not a watch. It's a fitness wearable, and it just measures. It's really cool. So a lot of people think it's an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. It's not. They all serve different purposes for the most part.
Right.
So this is great if you want to geek out like on just pure data. There's no watch component on here. It's not the Fitbit. It doesn't count your steps. It measures expenditure. It measures heart rate. It measures sleep quality. And the thing about this is, before it gives you any data, there's like a recalibration phase. So there's about a week of just no access to anything. So you wear it and it's just measuring everything. And then by the 5th or 6th or 7th day, then it unlocks a little bit of data. And then as the time progresses, it unlocks more because it's still learning you, as opposed to slapping on an iWatch. From my understanding, because I don't own one, it just starts giving you some information, which is like interesting. So this has about a week of recalibrating versus you put on an iWatch and it just starts reading you like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Is
it tied to an app?
Yes, it is. So it's tied to your app on the phone, and it just gives you all your data. So like, it's really cool. I'm trying to get Karina one, but she's not interested. She's like, I don't care. But again, it's only those who just really want like the specifics. And I was teasing Karina because I was tripping out because every time I have a glass of whiskey or two, the following day my recovery's a lot lower. And I'm not drunk. I'm not having my glass to get buzzed. I'm just enjoying sleeping slowly.
Yeah.
But you see just a massive decline in recovery. And I'm like,
really?
Oh, yeah, man. And I prior to that, I've done a lot of reading I already knew that was going to happen, but it shows that having 2 glasses it doesn't stay in your system that long, but the repercussions can be up to 3 days, so it depends on the person. Right. But I believe it, man. So I had some whiskey on Friday. I'm not hungover or anything, but it's just like I don't feel my best. Yeah. So it's just.
So I'm not going to be able to talk you into a glass tonight.
No, I can't. But it's really cool because it just shows you like raw data. Like, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to, if you're not recovered. So therefore, if you plan, okay, let's say I wake up this morning and my recovery is low based on the data that it spits out, and I have like this massive workout plan with Mike. So then I'm going to go into that workout and say, hey man, I'm going to have to pivot. I already know because I'm not feeling the best. So why am I going to kind of push it? You just kind of, decrease the volume so that you can still exercise, but it just gives you like more of like a roadmap. Mm-hmm. And now they have, rings that you can wear, and, you have this and like the new Whoop. I don't know how it's done, because the technology is like, it's like alien type, dude. So now they even have somewhere you don't even have to wear it, but you have to have it close. Like they have like a t-shirt with a little zipper, like you just put the Whoop on. It's crazy. So, and that's supposed to track and be comparable to wearing it on your wrist. So,
and this is called
a Whoop.
Whoop?
Whoop.
Is it W-O-O-P?
Yeah,
Whoop?
W-O-O-P. W-H-O-O-P.
W-H-O-O-P.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of
I got to look into that one.
Yeah.
I think that's something Jill would love.
A lot of athletes use it, like LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes. And initially, it was years of like low, because I was listening and reading on the inventor. He had this vision, and the technology wasn't there. And he goes, we can create this. And, the guys he was working with, this is never going to work. Not only does the technology doesn't exist, it's just who's going to want to wear this. Right. And the next thing you know, it just exploded. Like, all the top athletes will use it, or, obviously you'll cover it up with a band or something, like a wristband or something. But again, it's only good for if you really want to know like data. And then with that data, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's not what you're going to do. It's just having it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. And the cool thing with this is when you do get it, I get to add my clients onto. There's a way for me to look at all my clients' information, so they don't have to say. So I don't have to say, "Hey, how did you sleep last night?" I can just say, "Mike Nunley, holy shit, you didn't sleep at all." Yeah. So, hey, you okay, buddy? Yeah. Or if your recovery is low, like, "Hey, did you go out drink?" It's really
too many
cool.
scotches by that point.
Yeah, it's really cool to do that, and they see mine as well. So it's pretty fun, and we can message each other.
That's kind of cool because then you got like a little community.
Exactly.
Exactly,
and it's fun, and again, it's just good information.
Yeah. So we got my questions out of the way. Mm-hmm. The main thing is I'm going to go back to. I'll close up this section of it with, if you're young and you've got parents that are in their 50s, 60s, or whatever, freaking don't treat them like they're glass.
Yep.
Don't treat them like they're breakable. Treat them like they're human beings. Stop telling them that they're old, and get them out there doing something. I don't care if they're walking. I don't care if they're fishing. I don't care what the fuck they're going to go do. Get them out of the house. Get them off the couch. Get them moving, and, that's a responsibility for young people. Instead of my parents are old, hey, I want to hear my parents are active.
Yes.
So
exactly.
So what do you bring? We've been talking about having you come on now for a few weeks. So what did you have that you wanted to bring up?
Real quick, go ahead and just keep talking. I'm going to check whatever this noise is out here. I don't know if you can hear it in your headphones. There's a crazy loud noise outside. Yeah.
Outside?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can't hear a damn thing. So good.
I know. We're just going to...
Of course.
What?
He's power washing the sidewalk.
Oh, that's okay. Whatever. Yeah. That's a weird make. I was hearing a bunch of noise coming from out there earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that won't show up nearly as much, but I can hear him. He's right outside the door. I can hear him.
Oh, is that right?
If we
Yeah.
just go down a couple blocks. I'm actually gonna ask him, but you guys go ahead.
All right, cool.
Okay. Yeah.
So what was your question, Mike?
I was just, we were, talking about having you on the podcast,
Yep.
and it's been a while. And I know the last time that you were here, we talked about a lot, but I think that we left a lot,
Yeah.
unspoken. So I didn't know if you came in and you had some thoughts and some ideas, things that you wanted to talk about.
Honestly, is just really encouraging. It's the new year. It's just really encouraging people to challenge themselves. I went through like some personal stuff over the summer, and instead of just venting on the issues, challenging myself to overcome this specific obstacle. And with I did a lot of reading, self-development books, and just a lot of like just mental kind of recharging. So
Yeah.
just encouraging people to...
He's okay?
No, there's no one out there. It's just spraying into the street by itself. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'll go back out in a minute. And sorry to interrupt, though. I could hear it, and I was like,
Hey, I don't care. Interrupt all you want. You're the ones editing it out later.
I know I'm gonna have to deal with that in post. But okay, go ahead. Sorry, y'all.
No, you're good. Just essentially just really encouraging people to take action.
Yeah.
Try not to settle. There's always a solution to something. It might not be pretty. Everything takes work. And just, that's kind of my mantra this coming year is like, hey, look, I know what you're going through. However, we can work on this together. I'm here to help you, here to support you. I really want people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, like taking action, and just acknowledging that, because it's important. I'm not perfect, and I have 2 kids, and it's very stressful, and I can just go crazy, or I can find a way to understand what's how to understand my kids and whatnot.
Right.
So same thing with people with their goals. Whether it's not knowing how to start or the frustration of not seeing change. Don't panic. Stay the course. Everything takes time, but you just got to understand that you can't settle. You shouldn't settle. If you settle, nothing's going to change, right? You're not going to feel. If you're not doing anything, you don't feel better. How is that going to make you feel? How are you going to get more energy if you're not working towards getting more energy?
Right.
If you're not losing, if your goal is to lose weight and you haven't done anything to lose weight, then stop talking about it. Let's just be about it, and just take one step forward and just keep working your way forward.
Yeah, I think that there's, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the whole mental aspect of working out and going to the gym, and and it doesn't really matter. We talk about the gym as that's the end all to be all for everything, and there are so many other things going on out there in the world that you can do just to be just as active. You can go hiking. We had 2 girls on here, 2 women, about 3 weeks ago, and it was CSI Barbie, and it's a great podcast. But they, what I term as extreme hikers, they're those people that they'll get up and get to the site at 3:00 in the morning. They're prepared a week ahead of time. They know exactly what their elevation is going to be, what the trail is going to be like. Everything is all set up. They've got their water. They've got their hydration. They've got their food. They've got everything that they need. And then they leave at 3 in the dark and start their hike so they can be back before
the sun comes out.
Yeah, down before the sun goes back down, because it's like a 20-mile hike.
Oh, they go on. Gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
They go on these big things.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there's things like that and it's fun listening to them talk about it, because the hiking was the payoff for the work that they put in at the gym. The gym was the workhorse.
Sure.
The hiking was the reward.
Sure.
And there's so many different things. When you look at surfing and you see people out there, you got the weekend guy that just paddles out and catches 1 or 2 waves, or you get the guys that are out there every single day, surfing big, just, takes fitness.
Yeah.
you go down Coast Highway and you see groups and groups of cyclists. You see, there are so many different ways to get fit.
Sure.
That it doesn't have to always be inside, doesn't have to always be a gym. It's been, my life has been the gym. I enjoyed that. Yours is.
Sure.
You know, but it's, I think along the same lines of what you're trying to say is, you know, do something.
You have to, man. It's
Just
a waste of talent.
something, man.
It's an absolute waste of talent. Whether you have experience or not, like at some point, I encourage people to work with the coach. Just give it an opportunity. Hopefully, it's a good opportunity, a good experience. But like, learn as much as you can. I mean, that's the best advice. There's 2 clients I work with who are young, fairly advanced, and you know, I've never had this happen before. But they're like, I trust you, so just whatever you think can make me better.
Yeah.
Which is a weird, like, what? Like, well, what's your, you know, like, let's talk about your goal. Like, no, I think I trust you, but hold on, well, give me something to work with. You know?
Yeah.
But like, it was really interesting because it's more performance based. One of them is a runner and a surfer, and the other one's just more like, I just want to be overall strong and healthy. He surfs too, but he goes, I just wanted to be able to challenge myself in ways that I can't do on my own, and which is a lot of fun because I'm kind of put out there to just to design something at such a high level, yet they're not giving me much specifics, yet they're enjoying it. And I'm just kind of like changing when I explain to them what we're doing, of course, and like, hey, we're going to pivot on this point. Are you okay with it? Yeah, I trust you, but okay, but I just want to make sure you're on board with this. So
that's really funny that you say that too, because as I was saying earlier, you know, I've been going to gyms that, you know, regular basis, membership time for 48 years. And prior to that, you know, 19, 18, whatever is well spent, you know, surfing and, you know, always active, always an athlete. But I've actually been thinking over the last 6 months or so about a coach, a personal trainer. I had coaches while I was cycling, but never in the gym. And I thought, you know, I've been doing basically the same movements for this whole period of time. And I may have broken them up. Instead of doing a bench press, I'll go over and do dumbbell presses, or instead of doing flat, I'll do an incline, or instead of doing the bench, I'll do a machine or what, but they're all the same movements.
Sure.
They're all the same things. You know, like you were saying, you know, single joint movements or, you know, compound movements, whatever that they are. And I've never really broken anything up.
Interesting.
You know, I have changed my routines. For a while there, I was doing 10-10s, and then I was doing 10-10s with declining weights, or, you know, I mean, you can break them up in all kinds of different ways. But again, it was always the same stuff. You can only squat a certain way. You're going to squat. You're going to do bench press, or you can do dumbbell presses. It's all the same movement. Your back exercises, you know, or all your pulleys and pull downs or rows or whatever. And I thought, been thinking that, you know, it'd be kind of cool to find somebody to get a new perspective. Yeah. Because I feel, just from what I've watched or what I read, that like technology, working out has changed.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
But I haven't seen the change.
You should, man. And when that time comes, you want to make sure to, as the coach is interviewing you, do the same thing. He asks as many questions. I always get excited when my clients challenge me, or when my consultations ask me questions, because it goes both ways.
Right.
What are you looking for? You know, am I the person for you?
Right.
Sometimes it's not, and if that's good news, because that means we came to the conclusion that it's not a good fit.
Right.
And just ask as many questions. You know, tell them that you're looking for. You know, obviously it's new territory for you, so you may not be able to put into context, but just say, I want change. Here's what I've been doing. Be specific as possible. Be transparent as possible. And there's having a good coach can teach you how to back squat and implement boxes and tempo and speed. And there's just so many ways you can squat that makes that pattern more exciting. You can hold the bar differently. You can change the object. I mean, you can change your stances. You can go, you know, single stances. You can go wide, narrow. They all serve a purpose. You can have heels elevated, I mean, dude, there's so much out there. So I highly encourage.
Of things that I'm not thinking about, but it all kind of goes hand in hand with my thought and my idea. Okay, how far can I take this? How much better can I get, if I can actually get better? So maybe just changing things up is going to put it to a different level.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. You will get better, assuming that, you've been active for 40 plus years. Just be very detailed and concise on what you're looking for and what you're trying to accomplish. And typically, because you haven't done what's new these days, you are going to see change because your body's like, holy smokes. So you will see a positive adaptation to that. So
yeah. So let's segue into nutrition. I mean, you were just the bomb when we were talking about nutrition last time. I mean, you went into some depth with the nutrition. I found it really interesting. So, how do you, when you're with your clients now, because nutrition is such a huge part of fitness.
Yeah.
That
it's delicate.
Yeah. So how do you deal with everybody that's, different backgrounds, different viewpoints, different ideas, different taste buds? I mean, I don't know. They're so different.
So as a coach, you got to take your personal preference out of the equation. So that's first and foremost. So you got to first identify their personal preferences. Are they lactose intolerant? Do they like beef or not? So the personal preferences go first, and then there could be a cultural component, right? So if there's a cultural component, you got to respect that and work with that as well. And then you identify the goal again, because now you have personal preferences, cultural, now the goal, and then you identify okay, here's the goal, here's what we're working with. Out of these two, what are we willing to change or adjust? And that's kind of how I start. So to give you more specifics, Mike Nunley comes to me. He doesn't like beef. Perfect. We won't eat beef. His cultural preferences, let's just make this up. You eat a lot of pasta, Italian background. Cool. You've got to respect that. So, and then we go into Mike Nunley. His goal is to lose 15 pounds. Okay. So now that we got your preferences, your cultural background, now we got your goal. Now I'm able to start and say, what are we willing to adjust, if any? Maybe it's an interesting question. I mean, it sounds very easy to ask, but sometimes the client's not expecting it, or they don't know what can I change? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Or let's just pretend for this example, you're willing to do anything. Okay, so we'll basically tackle proteins are priority, of course. Figuring out okay, Mike doesn't want to eat beef, so now let's look at the positive options. We never tell them, we always encourage them with the options. There's a lot more options you can eat. So highlighting fish, chicken, blah, 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 and then tying that into a daily regimen. So before I give any specifics, I just kind of give them a broad perspective. We're going to tackle protein first because I noticed that I'm assuming that you filled out a food questionnaire and I already got some information from you prior. I noticed here, Mike, that you don't drink enough water. So I'm going to set a target for you that's very realistic. So it'll just be one of these because you're averaging just one glass. So just everything is realistic and achievable. The thing with nutrition is you don't want to change too many things at once, one or two things max. Preferably one, but you can do two as long as they're very simple. And you want to make sure that the client is able to buy into it. So on my latest certification, Precision Nutrition, it's a beautiful certification for coaches or even non-coaches who want to learn just basics, but basics that are very impactful. And no matter what you do, no matter what we're going to change, your change has to be graded on a 1 through 10 scale. So if I'm going to drink one of these a day, I should be 95% confident that I can do this. If it's less than that, then we need to scale back on the goal. Then maybe we start with half. And that is how I build most of my nutrition plans individualized for my clients, is based on that. And we just kind of take it one step at a time. And this works. It just takes a lot slower. If in this podcast, people are like, it's going to take too long. It's true. It's going to take a long time, but health and fitness is a forever thing. Right. It's not a 2-week fix.
I'm glad you pointed that out because that's absolute truth. There is nothing quick about fitness. Nothing.
Right.
I mean, and then right when you think that you are where you want to be, you can always raise that bar.
Yeah.
So it's forever ongoing. It's you never really reach the end of it.
No, there is no way.
No. And then it becomes, like a older person gets to a point to where, okay, my goal isn't so much to be here. It's how far can I go? Now it's endless, because you're always going to be pushing a boundary. You're always going to be trying to stay one step ahead. So it's
yeah. So going back to, so then after you establish one or two things that you're going to change, you give it a timeline. Okay, we're going to do this for the next 10 to 14 days. And then based on their progress, just like I track the exercises, just like I track the weights, etc., I'm tracking the same thing with nutrition. Great. Or maybe it wasn't great. Maybe it was too aggressive. Maybe half a cup was too, half of these is too much. Maybe we need to start with the glass. It's very elementary. It sounds elementary, but it's the best way to do it. As opposed to the old me, okay, Mike, you want to lose weight? Here's a list. This is what you're going to shop at the grocery store. But I'm Italian. This is what you're going to shop at the grocery store, okay? So and just ignoring that and ignoring you as a human being, as your cultural background, your preferences, that's the old me, and that's kind of what you're seeing on social media. It's either eat this or you have to eat that, or you're going to die. If you don't eat this, you're going to die. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. I have actually a tough time seeing some of the so-called fitness experts pushing their agenda, and it doesn't seem like it is health oriented. It just seems like it's result oriented, but health doesn't seem to really play a big role in it.
Well, typically what you see on social media, just because that's the main platform these days, is someone's going to have a good experience with something and they're going to look way apart, and it's going to be eye captivating, and they're going to make money off it. And they're going to be educated well, so they have the look, they have the results, and they're super smart, and it's very convincing, and you're like, well, fuck, I got to do it then, But that's the problem, it's everything's individualized. It just worked for him, or, you can't look at food or diets and say, well, don't eat this. You got to look at it from an optimistic perspective, and like, here's what you can eat, as opposed to here's what you shouldn't eat.
Right.
You have to look at it that way, because honestly, most people, only because I'm in the industry, most people don't realize all the options they have to eat. There's a lot of super tasty fruits and different cuts of meat, variety of vegetables that you can satisfy anyone's palate. You can. Most people don't really know how to select. That's kind of the issue.
Well, also too, and somewhere along the line, there's that dreadful term of balance. That comes into it. And that's one of the things that I tell people, about you, for example. You eat really clean majority of the time. You, Karina, the boys eat really, really clean.
I still like pancakes.
And that was my point, is that I had you and Karina over for dinner prior to our last podcast, and I believe Jill, being Italian, made lasagna or something.
Yeah,
and
good.
you and you and Karina both sat down there, and I believe you had a couple helpings, and there was some bread, and it's like, now you don't eat like that every single day, not even close to that,
right?
But that balance is, and I'll tell a quick story. Years and years ago, I was like 17, 18 years old, and I had hitchhiked across country coming from Chicago back home. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was back in the day when you can do that.
Yeah.
And I got picked up in a big freaking black Lincoln by two guys, and I swear to God, I think that these guys were connected for sure, because they picked me up, asked me where I was going, and never said another word to me. And they carried on a conversation in the front, and I sat in the back seat the whole time. And then they got close to where they were going. They were saying that they were stopping at a monastery because the passenger's brother was a monk at the monastery.
Oh.
And so he was going to visit his brother. And they said that you're welcome to go and stay there, and they'll take care of you, and they'll feed you, and you can stay as long as you want. I thought, oh, that'd be pretty cool, because it was a huge working farm. It was what it was. So the first night there, and I was a vegetarian at the time, I sat down, and it was meat and potatoes, and they, whatever it was that they had. And I made the comment to the monk, oh, I'm sorry, I don't eat meat. I'm vegetarian. He just said, son, when you come into someone's home, regardless of what your beliefs are, you eat what is put in front of you is a sign of respect.
Yeah.
And I never, ever forgot that.
That's interesting. I agree. Yeah.
So, going back to that story. But, what we were talking about, nutrition.
You said balance. So let me touch on balance. So balance and moderation are two words that can have a billion definitions.
Correct.
So what I always say to my clients is you got to be transparent with yourself. You have to be truthful, right? Because if you say, it's all about balance while you're having a hot fudge sundae and we haven't seen progress or and you haven't been eating as well, then that's not balance. That's just using that term out of context so that you can indulge in that. Yeah. So let's just make that clear. So, but yeah, dude, 100%, dude, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, prior to John Michael being born, 8 years ago, I was like, nah, man, like no balance. Like literally no.
Yeah.
Like you haven't lost weight yet, but it wasn't because it was my preferences. I just really wanted them to get results. However, but once again, I was looking at it from the wrong lens. It was I was pushing them. I was ignoring their, their preferences, their cultural background, et cetera. It was just like, no, you got to get results at any cost. But now it's the opposite, man. I'm more flexible. Even Karina will raise her eyebrows. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. Like I'm sticking to it. Like you have to respect the person.
Right.
And you can't judge. If a client binges, I'm never going to overreact. I would just follow up. Like, let's say you say, hey, man, I had pizza yesterday. I had more than a few slices, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so that's great. Did you enjoy it? Cool. Prior to that, anything changed during the day? What I'm trying to look for is like, what triggered that? And there's usually something, you had an argument with your wife. You just got off of work, a big ass. There's always something. Very seldomly is, I had a beautiful day at work. I closed this massive deal and I just fucking ate a ton of pizza and drank. It's usually more emotional, for the most part, like something negative and that's going to trigger something. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, how about for me, what about, I find that I will binge on something mainly when I have missed a meal prior to.
Sure.
Yeah. When my body's telling me I am overly hungry and okay, what's the easiest? What's the simplest?
Sure.
What's the high carbohydrate? And that's where I usually will cave. As long as I'm eating regularly.
So now we're talking about like regular blood glucose levels. So, if you just use you again as an example, if that's happening, that's a clear indication that, your glucose levels dropped too low. It wasn't because you didn't have willpower. It wasn't because you were anything less. It's just that your blood glucose was lower than normal. And we all experienced that. Like, I need something now.
Yeah.
Now. So not later. I'm not going to drive over. It has to be now. So in the event that happens is we need to eat more frequently if that's the case. Right. Or if, last podcast we talked about fasting, if you practice that, you can go long stretches and have stable blood glucose. It just depends. But when you do feel like that ravenous, fucking hungry, clear indication your blood glucose is dropped. You're down to your knees. You're fragile, and bring it, like whatever.
Oh, bring it, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's in and out time at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
that's where again we want to prevent that from happening.
Right. Yeah, I try to. I mean, that's one thing. God bless Jill. I mean, I got a lunchbox about the size of this table, and being Italian, she fills that baby up. I get to work, and that lunchbox is overflowing. It's so funny too because I'll come home and I'll have eaten. My breakfast at 8 or so in the morning, and I'll have a snack around 10:30, 11. I'll have my lunch. I'll have a snack in the afternoon. I'll come home and she'll open up. She'll go, "You didn't eat anything." It was like, you packed enough for a week. But
I do want to say is with nutrition, and since obviously we're talking about exercise as well, is you want to eat based on your activity levels. So, if you didn't work out today, you shouldn't be eating that much. Or you don't need that much food. I wouldn't say you shouldn't be eating.
Right.
And also like your body size, you're a lot larger than I am. So you're going to eat more in general than I am just because that's your frame. So those are two components that you need to pay attention to.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, because for me, the amount that I eat at each meal has become significantly less.
Has it?
Yeah. Over probably the last 15 years, you know, where I would used to in my early 50s, I mean, big meals. Now, you know, I don't know if just trained myself or it's just happened naturally, but I eat to a certain point to where I feel that's enough. And then I stop.
So this is just shooting through the hip, just from the little that I know. It could be just you're probably losing a little bit of muscle. And so, because, you know, you're going to eat based on your activity, based on your skeletal muscle. So if you're eating less, you could be losing a little bit of muscle. So you're probably like, fuck, I used to eat this. But that's just my quick,
and it's probably a lot.
I would just jot that down if we were interviewing, like, circle this, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing. It's just more like, okay, cool. And then on the flip side, when you exercise, when you're 60, pushing 70, when you start strength training more, your appetite increases. So then you'll be like, oh, okay, so I can eat more.
Yeah.
And theoretically, yeah, you are. You should.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Feed the body.
Yeah.
But but I definitely have noticed too that even with my workouts and being what they are, I have lost muscle. I mean, it's just, and I've accepted. Yeah. You know, it's gonna happen. It's not massive amounts, but definitely
noticeable.
It's definitely not what it was 10 years ago.
Sure. So one thing I challenge you, this is kind of irrelevant, but when you eat later today or whatnot, or your next full meal, what I want you to do is you're going to set a timer on your phone and you're going to remove all distractions. Like TV's off. The only thing you could do is like talk to your wife if that. And just hit start, and then I just want you to eat your food as slowly as possible. And just chew your food, see if you can taste the spices or herbs. Like, just really try to pay attention to the flavor of food. And the reason I'm saying that is because most of us, myself included, is we just eat too quickly, usually distracted. So we're like eating right here, then we're eating, so like we're just scarfing down food down your throats. And I use this a lot with my clients when they say, you know, I'm eating too much. Like, what are you doing? Like, while you're eating? Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, what are you like physically doing? Are you watching TV? Are you reading? Like, it should be no distractions. Right. And it's so hard to do because unfortunately, because of phones and just access to being distracted, we're always distracted. Always. And in terms of weight loss, this is what I always encourage. Not in the very beginning, because I kind of have to build their trust in that. It sounds silly when I say hit a timer. Then you'll see how long it took you to get full. And you're like, fuck. Yeah. You know, I'm like stuffed, and there's still a shit ton of food on the plate. And it will happen to everyone, period.
Yeah. So, and that's probably one of the things that I do way more than I should. And that's be occupied while I'm eating.
Yeah, we got things to do.
Well, it's like I bring my lunch with me for a purpose, because I don't go out to lunch. I don't stop at lunch. I don't, you know, I limit the fast food as best as possible. Yeah. So I bring it with me. So that also means when I'm in the office, I'm on the phone, I'm on the computer, I'm doing things while I'm eating.
Isn't that interesting? Like, as human beings, like, we eat food because of want and taste, but when we're actually eating food, we're just shoving it into our throats, right? Yeah. We're having a glass of wine, some whiskey, whatever, watching TV. We're not paying attention to this amazing meal, a slice of pizza that was just badass, you know, and we're just shoving it into our throats because we're moving on to the next thing.
Somebody told me a long time ago, you know, we were both dieting really hard. We were on this thing called, what the heck was it? God, it was an old time workout dietary thing. It'll come to me, but we were both doing it, and one day I broke down, and because I'm a cookie fiend.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my Achilles heel.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you put a cookie in front of me.
Any cookie?
Any, man. I never met one I didn't like. It's just like, so, we were like 3 or 4 weeks into this, and it was really a grueling diet, which wasn't really healthy, but it was one where, you 0 carbs on Monday. And then, it was all protein. Tuesday was all protein. So by the time you got to Wednesday, when it was as many carbs as you want, you were so depleted. I mean, you couldn't add one.
Sure.
I mean, it just, affected you that much. And I finally just got to a breaking point. I got a bag of animal cookies, and I was going to do. And and he scolded me. He goes, "Look, okay, you eat the cookie, and it's good for a second, and then you swallow it. And what's the first thing you want? Another one, because it doesn't satisfy the craving that you have. Sure. So I always remember that. So I always remember, okay, put it away. I'm not going to go down the path. It's just temporary pleasure.
Well, just in general, like, refined carbohydrates. So just you can eat so much of it so quickly. I mean, they're pretty empty for the most part.
Yeah.
So I was reading this book I'm reading this book by Michael Pollan. It's called In Defense of Food, and it's great. And information I want to share with you. So he was talking about, I just lost my train of thought. He was talking about refined food. So like we'll use animal cookies.
Right.
So nowadays, because of technology and science breakthroughs, a lot of these, just trashy processed foods actually have a lot of nutrition. Let me be clear, they're not healthy, but they have more nutrition than before, because now they're pumping out like more vitamins, et cetera, and they're more fiber into an animal cookie versus the old version was a lot more bland. So they're making these food manufacturers are coming out with these processed foods that are just have more of a punch to it. And so what the author is explaining is the breakthrough of science is actually making us more unhealthy, because at the end of the day, what's more a calorie for calorie, what's going to be more beneficial for the body, an apple or animal cookies? If they have the same caloric value, what do you think is going to have? Of course, the apple, right? However, with nutrition and the science that we're looking at is they're just pumping out more nutrients on there to package it, to put a little bow tie on and say, hey, this has more fiber, extra X, Y, and Z. And that's kind of what I've been noticing at Sprouts. I'm looking at packaged foods, and I'm looking, there's always a hyphenated word, high this, high that, I'm like, oh shit, this is so true. It's been here this whole time. Just like this book kind of just helped me like look at it and have more context. So, a lot of these packaged foods are claiming healthier. They're not lying to you, but it's still not equivalent to like the real thing, like a banana.
Right.
And that's where people are still struggling, with their health. But I don't know why I'm not getting healthier, because this type of spaghetti has extra fiber. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
But have you tried spaghetti squash? It doesn't taste like this, but like I'm just saying, like it's an option.
It's actually really good though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really.
So it's just very interesting, packaged food, processed food, like they're getting more eye captivating.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because there was one of the cereals, I don't know, I can't remember which one. It was a sugar-coated cereal. Could have been Cocoa Puffs or Sugar Smacks or whatever. And on the package, it was now with less sugar. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got Sugar Smacks. How in the hell is that going to be less?
Dude, I got one for you. So my favorite cereal of all time, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Mm-hmm. And a couple years ago, I would buy a box. I'm not even counting, but maybe twice a year. Yeah, I'm saying it. I'll have twice a year. And I don't count. It just one day I'm like, I haven't had this in a long time. I'm going to go for it. And a couple years ago, I noticed it was promoted as high fiber. I'm like, I thought nothing of it. Oh, whatever. Yeah. It tasted like shit. I'm like, I missed the old one, the non-fiber one. So like, I don't want fiber in my damn sugar cereal. I want my original. But my point is, like, this book has really just made me like realize, like, damn, man, it's so much of a head fake. Just drawing consumers to purchasing a keto bar that, looks good. There's some great ones out there, but they're not all created equal.
Right.
Or a vegan bar, or like using the pasta with extra fiber, and it's just, now they're adding iron to it, but it still isn't the same.
Right.
So I think his argument was like, we're in there's nutritional battle between like the food manufacturers saying, no, well, there's extra in here, but it's not the same as this. That's the biggest argument. So, for a consumer, it can be confusing.
Well, it's totally confusing because going back to my analogy with cereal, all the daily nutrients, they'll list it all out and they'll tell you a bowl of this, gives you all the necessary vitamins and minerals throughout the day. And, okay, that sounds great. Mm-hmm. Except the problem is they're not telling you how much fucking sugar is in that thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, so yeah, they're confusing people with, I was reading an article and it was on sugar and sugar intake and like juices. Mm-hmm. How much sugar is in the juice? How many, when you eat an orange mm-hmm. and you have the juice and the sugar from the orange, well, you're also getting the fiber from the orange.
Mm-hmm. The pulp.
The pulp, yeah. And how many oranges does it take to make an 8-ounce glass? Mm-hmm. So you're drinking that down. It's going directly into your system and into your liver. And it's so much sugar. It's not as good for you as what you would think because it's nutritional, because it's 100% juice, but they don't, they don't bring out, okay, you're drinking pure sugar. Yeah. Eat the orange. Mm-hmm. Now you got the pulp, you got everything that's going to fill you up. You get the real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I would always say, like, you want orange juice? Just have oranges.
Yeah.
Not to say you can't have a freshly squeezed orange juice, but really quick, I want to define the differences between whole food, processed foods, and refined foods. So whole foods, obviously a banana, a piece of steak, an apple. Processed foods where it gets tricky because they're not refined. It's a part of refined food is processed, but I'll get to it in a second. So a processed food could be something prior to eating. It needs to be manipulated. So if I'm cooking lentils, I can't just grab a handful of lentils and start eating, like going to town. I have to manipulate it by what? I got to boil it. So that's considered, some may argue, but it's a form of processing. It doesn't fall under the same camp as a cookie, but it's still a way of processing something. Same thing with cheese or dairy. It's a form of processed food. Now, this is where it gets it continues to get slippery because now you have, these are great foods, but they're not under the, popsicle processed foods. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. So processed foods can also be like a bar, like a health bar, like a Cliff Bar, which is trash, but they're promoting as high fiber or, high carbohydrate. But that type of processed food isn't equivalent to like a bowl of lentils that has like onions and spices, etc. So refined food is obviously like the worst of them, right? So like popsicles, candy, etc. So to tie it all up, so an orange will be a whole food. Freshly squeezed orange juice would be processed, and a orange popsicle will be a refined food. So there's 3 different categories.
Right.
So not all processed foods are bad for you, but you want to kind of minimize those. You want to eat more whole foods, minimal processed foods, and then of course you want to omit the refined food as much as possible.
Right.
That's kind of how I educate my clients and like just know the differences.
Right.
Just to kind of piggyback on what you're explaining about reading the food label is next time you grab any packaged food, which is processed, look at the back and, the first 4, look at the total number of ingredients. You want to look at the first 3 or 4 because that's the most potent. Okay. And if you see sugar or canola oil, which is the first 2, it's safe to say those are the worst for you. It should be at the very bottom, if anything. Right. Canola oil shouldn't be eaten, period. But I'm just saying, like, the first 3 or 4 are the ones where, like, that's where they're packing their punch for that particular food. Right. So when you're eating processed foods, look at the back. Is it pure coconut milk or do they add something to it? Same thing with almond milk, right? I think it's the brand is Breeze. you look at the back and it's just, there's really not that much true almond consistency in that. So anyone can Google how to make pure almond milk. It's a process, but it's doable. But it looks nothing like and tastes nothing like the Breeze version from the grocery store. And you can Google it and you'll be shocked. I want to say it was like less than 1/8 of a cup of like true almonds in an entire carton.
That's crazy.
Yes. So then it's like, what the fuck? So what else is it? But it's trippy, man. Going back to what I was saying about the authors, it just makes you realize how these manufacturers, they're tricking us and trying to like package it pretty, with the label, the name, high fiber, or he calls it the hyphenated area, high this, high that, low this, low that. And it's so true, man. It's working. People are going to.
Yeah, well, especially when you get into the health bars, the energy bars, anything related to athletics and working out. It's like, read the back of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of those things are anything but healthy.
Yeah,
you almost want to go grab a Snickers bar instead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The thing with fitness and athletics. It's trippy because, like LeBron James, it's really hard to get that many calories eating super clean. You just can't. You need more like calorically rich foods, like more rice, more grain, etc. So when you're an athlete, you need a lot more calories, and like chicken breast and broccoli is not going to do it.
No.
So I don't know if you recall, but years ago, Michael Phelps was a champion in swimming. He was parading like how many pancakes he ate a day. I think it was like 10 or 12, something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, like giving him shit, but they don't realize that he needs you understand that. He's training like 6 hours a day in the pool. Right. He's not going to get that from eating, cornflakes. No. So you do need a lot of calories when you're athletic. And sometimes like, he's like, fuck man, I need to eat this bar. It's not always the best option, but it's like you need more calories. Like I'm on a run.
Well, also too, the other side of that is when you're eating all whole foods, you're going to fill yourself up.
Sure.
A lot quicker with less calories than you are with the processed food.
Sure.
Or refined food. I mean, you start getting down to the refined foods, and you're going to eat a lot more calories before you get filled.
Sure.
Where whole foods is totally just the opposite. So when you're an athlete like that, I don't think it's actually possible to sit and eat.
Well, one of the techniques they use is they eat fast. So you bypass your satiety mechanism. So it's what I do indirectly, because I have kids, I'm just like,
I got time.
As fast as I can. That's a tactic you can use, is eat fast if your goal is to put on.
Well, the guys that impress me the most are the world's strongest. Mm-hmm. Those guys, they fucking can eat. Yeah. And I mean, eating to them is part of their training because it takes so much time throughout the day to eat the number of calories that those guys are, unhealthy amounts of food.
There's a documentary on, I forgot his name, Ed something. He was a savage. And it was like a day in the life of this, this power lifter. And he looks unhealthy. Like you just look at his face. It looks like his cheeks are going to pop, and he was eating just trash. But to your note, like he needed calories. He's like, I don't care. And he even said like, I know I'm not healthy, but I'm strong as fuck, and I'm number 2 in the world. I'm going for number 1.
No, they know that they're not healthy, and you look at them and they're not healthy. I mean, when you see these world's strongest guys, these power lifters, the gut on them was just giant. But that's. They're stronger than shit.
Yeah, the more weight you have, the more you can push.
Yeah.
So
these guys are. I don't know how you can be 6'8" and 420 pounds.
I know.
It's fucking crazy.
They don't look human.
No, no. And actually, I really question any of these elite athletes if what they are doing is truly healthy. You look at football players. Mm-hmm. You look at the linemen, you look at the linebackers, the weight that they're carrying. Mm-hmm. It's not healthy on the organs. Mm-hmm. That's why you see a lot of them after their careers, and then you see a picture of them, and they're freaking half the size that they were when they were playing.
Yeah, there was a few studies kind of highlighting the total size of a human being nowadays versus back in the days. So like LeBron James is like a center back in the 50s, his frame, his stature.
Yeah.
So like there's something with that. You know, there's speculation. It's hard to come to a conclusion, but like, is it the food that we're consuming? Is it, you know, what's inside the food? Is it possibly the type of training? Who knows? It could be a combination of many things.
Right.
But to your note, like, yeah, like, you know, like these linemen or these big ass athletes, and they just look like unnatural. They wouldn't be able to fit through your door.
No.
Like, how is that healthy? You know?
Yeah. How can that be healthy? How can being the world's strongest at, you know, 390 pounds and 6'5" or 6'6"?
Yeah.
How can that be healthy when you're sitting down and part of your meal is 12 eggs? I mean, I'm sorry, you know, there's just, you know, you can consume it, but it doesn't necessarily make it right. But I'm talking about even some of these, you know, like the CrossFit athletes, and you see the type of training that they put themselves through and their diet, and they look great and they're super fast and they can do a lot of movements and a lot of things. But, you know, is that healthy and sustainable for long periods of time? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, obviously you and I aren't at that level of athleticism, but I remember when I was in Korea and I was doing amateur bodybuilding, the heaviest I got to was 190 pounds, and I didn't feel good.
Right.
I guess I looked good, right? That's what she says. That's what many people say, but I didn't feel good. I just, like, you know, going to the bathroom was just wacky. My stomach was always bloated. And I'm just an amateur bodybuilder, not an NFL, you know, power athlete or whatnot. It's so, like, I'm assuming, you know, I don't know anyone personally, but I'm assuming that a few of them may feel the same. Like, you know, like their body's not feeling well. And, you know, I understand that's your sport, but, you know, you have to think of it as the long term, like how much you're willing to take on your body. So.
Well, and that's where I see the problem lies in sports today, is that you have a few that reach the pinnacle of whatever sport they'd be talking about. But then you have all the average guys that are never going to reach the pinnacle, never even going to come close to it. And you see so many these guys that are bodybuilders in the gym that are going to have a competition coming up, and it's a little local, you know, 5 people in their weight group, you know, type of a thing. And yet they are emulating some top pro bodybuilder that this is his diet. This is, you know, how he trains. These are unfortunately in bodybuilding too, there's a lot of drugs that are involved.
All sports.
Truly, you know, performance enhancing. So now you got that thrown into the mix, and for what's the goal? Just, I mean, I understand you and I just talked about challenges, but you got to weigh it out someplace.
Yeah, you have to. Ultimately you can't take it away from them, but at the same time is you got to make sure, like, you understand the consequences of what you're trying to do.
Sure.
But real quick, going back to nutrition and athleticism, and on the topic of sometimes you just need, you know, calories quickly, you know, in fitness, sometimes you're going to need like a protein shake. And nowadays there's some better, healthier protein shakes out there, but sometimes you need extra calories with it because either you don't have time to heat up a meal or you don't have access to a meal and you just need something quick. That's where like these processed foods can come into play. So, but for overall health, probably not recommended or ideal. But I just want to make that distinction clear because processed foods can serve a role, but it's not for everyone.
Right. You know, and again, goes back to what we were talking about earlier with some balance. You know, try to figure it out. You know, if you're going to be an athlete, one of the first things that I would recommend you do is learn about your own body. You know, it's one thing when you learn about everybody else, what everybody else is going through, what everybody else feels, or, you know, that's all well and good. But you have to get to a point where you listen to your own body. Like you were saying, when you were bodybuilding, you felt bloated, you didn't feel right. You know, your body's telling you something.
Exactly.
You know, listen to what it's saying. It's no different than sitting, laying down to do a max bench press, and you barely get it up off the rack, and you feel a twinge in your shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay, now is it prudent that you're going to go through with the lift, or are you going to re-rack it and go maybe not today?
If you can reach the rack at that point.
At that point. Yeah. Listen to your body, because if you don't, you set yourself up for a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I remember a couple years ago I was doing an event, and it was like a nutrition education thing, and there was a woman, I had like a little booth at the gym, and there was a woman who passed by and was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just teaching about nutrition." She's like, "I already know what to do. I do keto." And she kept running off. I said, "Oh, before you run off, I just want to know how is it going?" She goes, "Well, I stopped it a couple months ago." I'm like, "Why'd you stop?" "Well, it was too hard." And I said, in my head, I'm like, "Well, I thought you knew what to do." it's like, I mean, it shouldn't be hard, it should be something that's doable.
Yeah.
That's the thing when you're like a cricket and you're bouncing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe this will stick. No, maybe this will stick.
Well, it's like you said, in nutrition, when you're sitting and you're talking to somebody, in the very beginning, and you're going to, coach them through the whole nutritional process. You don't say, okay, you're only drinking a glass of water today. That's not healthy enough. You need to drink a gallon a day. No, we're going to start down here.
Yeah.
We're going to use some common sense. We're going to slowly build you to where you should be. And a gallon may not be good for everybody. Depending on their size, depending on, their activity level, you don't know. Not that, there's too much water, I don't think, but, you just, you gotta listen to the body. The body's going to tell you a lot if you listen to it.
You got to listen to it, but you got to be patient. I'm always trying to encourage being patient. And, I had a consultation once, went sour. Just tell me what to eat. Like, I can't. Yeah. Like, how am I going to just tell you what to eat? I don't know nothing about you.
Right.
And just slow down. You say you feel unhealthy, or, you don't have energy. So learn from what I have to say, and you can't just be so quick to just tell me, give me.
Well, it's actually not always a give me. It's a take away too. So if you're not really feeling well and you don't have a lot of energy and you're feeling lethargic, maybe go all the way over here to the refined food area, and how much of that are you eating?
Sure.
Let's start there. I'm not going to tell you really what to eat, but maybe we're going to tell you about what you shouldn't be eating.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to obviously coach someone with that. But I think nowadays with nutrition, it's just me, but I feel people are starting to move away from a lot of refined foods. That's never going to go away. But I think just the composition of the meals where people have always struggled with.
Right.
I mean, for the most part, if you drink soda, you drink soda, but depending on how much you drink. But I think what's probably more important is the composition of the meal. Yeah, the soda doesn't help, but more often than not, a potential client will say, "I already know what to eat." Okay, but once I dive into the composition of the meal, the frequency of the meal, I'm like, that's where the problem is. I don't tell them that, of course, because I'm still learning, but it's just I'm starting to jot some notes. Like, this is because most people would say, "Well, I don't really eat candy," and I believe them. These days, I have a candy bar for Halloween, but you don't really see people walking around eating candy bars.
Right.
I mean, let alone drinking soda. That probably happens more often, but it's really the composition of a meal that's what's crushing people.
Right.
Too much of this, less of that. That's where it's like you have to really understand it, and they have to acknowledge it.
Yeah. It's funny when you say having a soda. I mean, really, I don't. When's the last time you had a soda?
It was before we had kids. It was specific. I remember my wife and I were at Disneyland, and it was hot as fuck. And out of the blue, I'm like, I just want a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh my God, I do too." And we just shared a small one.
Yeah.
We went through a large because it was 10 cents more. I'm like, what's 10 cents, right? Or 15 cents. But it was just we didn't even finish it. But it was just so hot. And I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, and that goes to with balance. I wasn't oh man, let me hide. It was nah, I'm just going to have a few drinks. They hit the spot, and I didn't eat anything else after, or I didn't, take it a step further and got like a milkshake or whatnot. It was just like I needed a few drinks and that was it.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. It's odd when you don't drink them regularly and then you have one. It
makes you want to sneeze, like the little fuzz.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah.
It tasted good, but I was like, holy smokes. Like,
yeah. I don't even know if they really taste that good. You know, I mean, I really don't, because I can't remember the last time I actually had one. I've had some diet Cokes and things on and off, but not very often. But to actually have a real full on, full of sugar, pump you up Coke or whatever the equivalent, root beer or something. The last time I remember, it just overpowered with how syrupy, or whatever it really was.
I mean, I think the last time I had like a full Coca-Cola was probably high school for sure.
Yeah.
I was never a big soda person, so I was lucky with that. I didn't have to struggle with that. So
yeah. I'm more of a milkshake guy. I'm gonna do it.
More of a bourbon guy.
Yeah. Oh man. So what do you think? Did we miss anything?
I don't believe so.
I think we hit it all.
I agree.
It's been a good time, bud.
Thank you for having me back, dude.
This is a good podcast. I'm gonna enjoy listening to this one.
Likewise, I'll make sure to forward it to all my clients and friends.
Absolutely.
You did what?
Yeah.
Was that me you're referring to? Like, yeah, it was.
It was.
I didn't want to use your name.
Yeah. No, it was really good. I think a lot of good information, and information that people in real life use. And it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It's maybe difficult to put everything together in a package, in a program, where I think a lot of people maybe fall apart and, miss out. And to those, I'd say, go find yourself a coach. Go find yourself somebody that's going to help you. Somebody that's got the answers and put you on the right track.
Yeah.
And if it's not something that you want to continue doing from here to eternity, at least give it enough time to learn about what you're doing, so that when you separate yourself and you stand alone, you have some good basic knowledge. And like you keep referring to the whole time that we were having this conversation, on books that you have read, things that you have heard, things that you're doing. And if you're going to do this, and I was that way in the very beginning, especially in learning the body parts and learning muscle groups, how muscles work, their attachments. I mean, I was just so totally into it. I was a student of the process.
Sure.
And that's what you need to be. You have to, you can't go into something halfway, especially when it comes to fitness and your health. And I think that's one of the things I heard the most from you, is that, you're still a student.
Always, man.
Yeah.
So I'm a student. My clients are students. Always have open mind. Be humble. Challenge yourself. You have to challenge yourself. I mean, you're just not going to grow unless you challenge yourself.
Yeah. No. So I think there's a lot of good information in this podcast, and I think the people that are going to listen to it and that are open to it are going to walk away.
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. And go find yourself a John Celis and get yourself worked up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thank you, man.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody.